nerds. Here we go. It's another episode of Swing Thoughts, episode 192. Coach Tim is here, golf spiritual leader, Humble Howard from the Humble and Fred Show. And we're excited. We've got a great guest for you, Swing Thoughts devotees, or STDs as we call you. You're going to love what you're going to hear. A really interesting character who combines high level golf ability and one of the best stand-up comics that is working anywhere on this continent or others. We'll get to him in a second. Hey, Coach Tim.
Hey, good morning.
Oh, there we go. How you doing?
I'm well. We've had some great weather. I understand that you've actually got out and hit the ball off grass in this area.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet to finally get out and play some golf. Monday was really cold. Tuesday was fantastic. We're recording on Wednesday. You guys are going to hear this on Friday. As always, brought to you by Jonathan Wong, Apparel, Inc., offering golfers of all ages quality apparel from head to toe. We'll talk more about them. I think Jonathan's going to join us, Tim, in his show soon to talk about what people will be wearing on the golf course.
Things like this, cherry and green.
Very nice.
Lovely pieces. A quarter zip.
And
Robert Dameron.
That's right. We had Dameron on last week. By the way, Dameron, everyone loves Dameron. We're going to get him back on again soon. Over the last 40 years, you've inspired us all here at TaylorMade to make a lot of great drivers, but all materials eventually reach their limit. Just like they went from persimmon to steel, steel to titanium, now it's time to leave titanium behind because the future belongs to carbon. Introducing the all-new TaylorMade Stealth with a red 60-layer carbon face for better energy transfer and more ball speed. To learn more about the Stealth or to schedule a fitting, and yes, you should do this, check out tailormadegolf.ca. And you have it.
It worked for Scotty Scheffler.
That's right. I got the... did you get that from TaylorMade? Because we're on the ambassador or whatever. You get to, every time something happens great in the TaylorMade world.
Yeah, the encyclopedic.
Yeah. What I was getting to is, as soon as he won, I got an email from TaylorMade. I'm like, that was fast.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick, well, he had a bit of a lead there. So whether it was Nick or someone else in the TaylorMade communications department, they had that sucker ready to go. As soon as he called out, it took 4 to get down, but...
Oh, yeah, that was great. Like, how about that? You have a chance. You could 7-putt and win the Masters. I wanted to. I just noticed this now because TaylorMade's put this out. The TaylorMade TP5 and TP5X, trusted by players like Johnson, McIlroy, Morikawa, Henderson, Scheffler, Glassman, and O'Connor. That's actually on there. To learn more about the latest TaylorMade products, visit tailormade.ca.
Yeah, those balls act pretty nicely out of the sand, eh? 2 in a row.
Yes, they do. Oh, yeah, that was cool. How bizarre was that? We'll talk more about the Masters. But first, I can't remember. I guess I must have met our guest today back in the mid-'90s when I was trying to qualify for the Ontario Amateur. Somewhere along the way, I encountered, I knew some people that knew him, and I only knew him as one of the best golfers around. I don't know what age he would have been in 1997 when I played in the Ontario Amateur and the Canadian Amateur. But I knew of this fellow, Dave Hemstad, and I knew he was a good player. And then I sort of lost track of him. And then a few years later, I found out, hey, that Hemstad guy is doing stand-up. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What makes him fucking stand-up? Well, it turns out, which is aggravating. First of all, I was aggravated because he was an amazing golfer, like a +4, +5, played college golf in the States. And then I find out he's also like a +7 stand-up, which is like, that's not even fair. Welcome to our show, the very funny, talented, and a great guy, great golfer, Dave Hemstad. Hello, sir.
Thanks, Howard. What a blushing intro.
I was wondering, were you also the president of your student council and prom king?
Sure.
Well, yeah, I was designing some upgrades for the space shuttle at the time.
For people there's a lot of people in Southern Ontario that know your name from the world of golf. So let's start with that. Give us some background on your golf world and how you were a good kid player and then you got recruited. Let's just talk about that. And then I want to know when it was that you realized that you could do stand-up. But let's get to that after.
Okay, I can do a lot of that in the same answer, Howard. I was a late bloomer golfer. I started really the summer I turned 17 with some friends from high school. We started playing. I had a job at a golf store, Dynamic Golf, which was the hub
Yeah.
of golf in Toronto area at that time. And so Randy Freeman was a guy who worked at the store. He was on a golf scholarship at Wichita State University. And so he and I went out playing, and I won more than once. I just wanted to see what a golf scholarship looked like. But I won. So I called his school and I said, "Is Randy on a scholarship there?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, I'm kicking his butt. Can I have some money?" And they said, "Yes, that's exactly how it works." So I went down to Wichita State, but our coach, Al Littleton, retired. And the new coach, Greer Jones, who came in, hadn't heard of me. So I had to walk on to Wichita State, which I did. I redshirted for a year. They didn't want to offer me any money. So I transferred to Missouri State because they played Wichita the most. And I was I was able to win a tournament when I was in Missouri State. I won the Pepsi Diet Pepsi Challenge, the Missouri State Invitational there. So I became a made guy. I was big man on campus for a week, and I came back and won the Toronto Star Amateur that same summer. That's 1999.
Yeah.
And then in the Ontario Amateur, I was struck by lightning, as you know. So after that,
wait. You can't just say, "Oh, as everyone knows." We should tell that story. So that's kind of where I first became aware of you, because I played in that Toronto Star Amateur, and I knew that you were way ahead of me, and you were on a path. At that time, did you think you were going to become a professional?
I was starting to consider it very seriously. I thought, okay, this is all things are trending that way.
Yeah.
I had a late start, but there's nowhere else but bust. And then the good Lord reached down from the heavens and said, "Wrong place." And so
Well, where were you when you were struck by lightning?
Details, please.
Yeah, on the par 5 at St. Catharines in the first round of the Ontario Amateur.
Wow.
The dogleg left hole. I think we started on the back 9, so I think it's 15 or 16. Down in the valley, and the horn went for inclement weather. Everybody was asked to leave. We were waiting for the guys in our group, and whang, down a tree. And then I thought it had missed us until the next morning when I woke up and my mouth was all purple and my ear was burnt to a crisp. And I was like, "What the heck happened?" And then, the lightning needed to come out, so it came out that way. And then I went to hit like a 4-foot putt, and it went about 15 feet. And that went on for the rest of the day and for the next few months. I just could not control my nervous system. I was just absolutely jacked. I couldn't perform. And so, long story short, I became a stand-up comedian.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, in 1999, when this happened, because you mentioned that you started late, how old were you at that time?
I was 24, turning 25.
And prior to this happening, that's why I asked you about, considering a professional career, because we all know, listen, a guy like Dave is a very high level player, but there's lots of that. In 1999, that was a couple years after Tiger turned pro. Was it realistic? Like, was it something you thought you'd try? I guess what I'm trying to say is, how realistic were you? And give us a sense of how good a golfer at that time were you?
Well, I played number 2 on my team, so I knew I wasn't the best anywhere. And I lost to a lot of other teams, so I knew I wasn't the best in college, but I always had a bit of magic, and I was able to win when I was in the hunt. And if I was playing well, I could seal the deal. So I also believe that with some more education about the game, I had the stuff, I had the nerves to do it. I just didn't have the golf IQ yet. So I was optimistic in that regard that I could attain more information. And then obviously it got sidetracked, and I started to question whether I even wanted to spend the next 5 years doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, if you imagine being a golfer, I don't have the disposition to spend 8 hours on the driving range every day. That's not my personality. I can play every day. I love golfing every day, but I can't be alone putting in the work for 8-9 hours. That's just not my personality type. I mean, now with new ADHD medications, maybe I'd have had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I needed the banter.
But when you realized that a professional golf career wasn't possible. You didn't go into like the want ads and went, oh, stand-up comedian wanted.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how you made that little turn.
What could I do that would be, I don't know, maybe easier than trying to be a professional golfer? I know.
Yeah, that's right.
And as lucrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hours in golf were outrageous. I said, this is 5 hours a round. I got to get
Come
something shorter than this.
I need to work for 1 hour a day.
That's right. Plus you have to make the cut to get paid. I need a guaranteed income, and stand-up comedy was the beacon. No, the true story is, Tim, I wanted to leave university. I didn't want to be there anymore. If I wasn't going to make it as a golfer, then I needed to go start a life. And I went to talk to a couple professors about leaving. And as I went to see one of the professors, there was a sign that said student stand-up comedy contest in a couple weeks. And I was standing there going, geez, I always wanted to try stand-up, and knocking on the door, waiting and reading the sign and going, I wonder how long you'd have to do. You'd have to find out how long your set needs to be. I'm knocking on I could joke about campus parking. That's kind of funny. And then it hit me like, I'm looking for a sign. I'm here for a sign. And this is literally a sign right here. So it took me a few minutes to put it all together, but I decided right there, I said, okay, I'm doing that contest, and I drop out the next day. And so I had 2 weeks to prepare, and I did the contest, and I won it, which was great, because then I won a Sega Dreamcast, which I could sell to my roommate for $200. So now I had $200 US I wouldn't have had, which is like $1.5 million to a college kid.
Yeah.
And so I was driving home with $200 US, and just for talking and telling jokes, I was like, is this a thing?
Do people get paid for this?
I'd do that again in a heartbeat. That was amazing. If I could imagine if you worked a whole hour.
So listen, every stand-up comic that I've ever met that does it professionally had a great first set. And for people who, you usually go up on an amateur night, in your case, a competition, but everyone that's ever done it professionally had a couple of really good sets to begin with. And then somewhere third or fourth time, you bomb horribly. And then what turns you into a professional is you decide that how good it felt when you did well, you mitigate that by how bad it felt when you did poorly, and you thought, okay, I can handle that. Most people bomb the first time and you never hear from them again. Was that your experience?
Well, I won a competition my first show.
No, I meant the first time you bomb.
Oh yeah, first time. I mean, maybe because I had a background in golf, I had an advantage there, because the first time you learn when you bomb. That's when you learn. You don't learn anything when you kill. You just have a great time and that's it. But when you bomb, you go, wow, I didn't realize, was that me? Was that them? Was I off? Were they off? And you need to assemble, Dave Mary, a mutual friend of ours, Howard,
Also a very good golfer.
Very good golfer, very good comedian, and was a mentor to me when I started. After my first set in Toronto at Yuck Yucks, he took me aside and said, great set. Your first 100 shows don't count. Mm-hmm. And so that really helped get my mind in the right place of, it doesn't matter how I do. I have to acquire, same as with golf. I need a much larger sample size before we figure out if I'm funny or how to be funny. And much like in golf, when it's going wrong, when you start with 2-3 bogeys, how do you save the round? Mm-hmm. So it's not even that I would have bad sets. You'd have jokes not work in a set. You always had your closer in your pocket, but okay, we're 4 jokes away from it, and I'm taking on a lot of water here.
Oh yeah.
How am I going to ride out this storm? And so for me, it's the same with golf. I figure you've got 1 good hour, 1 bad hour, and 2 hours in between to figure out your round. So, and that's pretty much every day. So how much can you keep it on the rails during your bad hour? How well can you capitalize on your good hour? And what do you got in your other 2? What's today going to give you? So if you can steal shots during your average hours, light up your good hour, that's how you shoot good rounds.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Go ahead, Timmy.
We're working these metaphors back and forth. This is awesome.
Very, very good.
Well, it was interesting. What I wanted to ask about was when you were talking about in golf, you said that you were able to close the deal. And to me, that speaks to I don't know, your character or sense of belief in yourself. What do you think I mean, both of those things, trying to make it as a professional golfer, certainly as a stand-up comedian, that's hard stuff. It's, one of the hardest jobs I got to imagine. So what kind of, I don't know, belief system or character traits do you think that you have that you were able to take advantage of to make it possibly as a professional golfer, but as a stand-up comic?
Resilience and ignorance.
Yeah.
And those combine to make an unstoppable force because I'm too dumb to know why I won't make it and too stubborn to quit once I've started. So what can slow you down? No, honestly, I think it's a very much a workmanlike approach. It's just other people have done it. It can be done. So why not you? Just go ahead and put in the work and learn from those around you. And when your time comes, just be ready to execute. It's not, you don't even think about the ego or the grandness of it. It's just, you're just doing the task that you've been preparing for.
And speaking of preparing for it, so you said you weren't a guy that could stay on the range for 5 or 6 hours and grind it out and, find it in the dirt. The thing about stand-up is you need repetition. You need lots of reps over a period of time. You said Mary told you don't worry about the first 100 shows. What's weird about stand-ups is you can be sort of toiling for 10 years and then in year 11 have a breakthrough. It takes a long time, as you and I both know, to get to the level that you're at. How soon after you started, you did Yuck Yucks and then you started to expand and now you're doing 15 minutes and as soon as you're headlining, when did you sort of think, okay, I guess this is my career path now?
I started with that thought. I really did. From my first amateur night, I'd already decided I was going to be a headliner and I was going to be a pro. Wow. So I came into it right with the determination and the motive. For me, the question was, how soon can I make a living at it? Mm-hmm. It wasn't it was, how do I get better paying jobs? What do I need to do to make more money? For me, it was never a question of whether I would make it. Always. It was only a question that how fast could I take on a rent or pay a mortgage,
You said ignorance, and I think you're being facetious to some degree, at least anyways. But when you said, okay, this is my career path, did you then, become a seeker in what are the skills and magic things that comedians need to learn?
This is, I think, the crossover of this show, Howard, why I'm an okay guest for this, is everything I learned about how to be a good golfer absolutely applied to how to be a good comedian. And that was a nice surprise to me. I didn't know that going in, but in terms of preparation, emotional stability, everything you need to succeed in golf, you need to succeed in stand-up. And then they're actually not that far apart. Perfection is unattainable. Imagination is an asset. And, I had a background, as much as you would think golf doesn't prepare you, I'd already had my face shoved down my throat by the game so many times. Mm-hmm. I would rather tell a bad joke than miss a 3-footer. Emotionally, I can blame you for the joke. I can't blame you for missing this.
Exactly. But that's kind of what I was saying about, a lot of people would like to try stand-up, but as soon as they have a bad set, you never hear from them again. Same with tournament golf. A lot of people like to try it, but it's not like regular golf. And sometimes people will dip their toe into that world and never hear from them again because not everyone can recover from or have the expectations. What you just said is so true about stand-up has, you have your jokes that you've prepared, but sometimes you go out there and you have to throw your game plan away. Like golf, if you're so worried about your golf swing, you're going to miss the game. We talk about that on this show, David, for 191 episodes about if you're trying to golf swing your way to lower scores, that ain't the way to do it. Because sometimes, your swing just isn't there. It's what you said about, hey, if you can have a few bad holes and then pick it up. I'll tell you, I've taken what I've learned from golf later in my life and applied it to stand-up in that I no longer worry if I'm going to remember them word for word. It's about, are you in that moment and can you play the game in front of you? And we both have seen comics where you're like, man, that guy's in his head. trying too hard, or new golf or new stand-ups trying too hard to get the words out perfectly?
I can tell you a great story. It was great for me. I played at Missouri State. I was playing for Perry Leslie, who was our coach there. And the seniors knew how to run the schedule. So for those who don't know, there's 12 guys on the college team, 5 get to compete. So we're constantly qualifying to be that 5. And we would have qualifying at 1 p.m. every day. Well, the seniors only took class till 11. And they would race, then they'd go and hit balls and chip and putt to 1. I took class till noon, had a 20-minute sprint across campus to get to the car. I'd get to the golf course, hit 4 balls, up putt, and be on the tee with these guys that are relaxing and laugh. So I'd bogey the first couple holes in qualifying, and then I'd play good. So I said to coach after a couple of weeks, hey, coach, this isn't fair. Look at what's happening here. From holes 2 to 18, I'm winning. But those first couple holes are costing me. I need a later start time. I need some sort of competitive balancing here. And, I hated his answer at the time, but it really was one of the best things that ever happened to me. He said, I don't care what goes on in your life before your tee time. When you step on that first tee, you better be ready to play.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true.
And that was the best tip for comedy ever. He didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it at the time, but no one in the comedy crowd cares what your day was like unless you can make it funny.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care what's going on in your life unless you can make it funny. And I see comedians come in and go, oh, I had a hard time getting here, but they're just whining. That's not a joke. That's just something that happened in your life.
Yeah.
Unless you have a bit, no one cares about your day. I don't care if your girlfriend broke up with you on the way to you have a job to do. These people paid $20 or whatever for their ticket. You owe them that many laughs. No one cares about your life. And with golf, golf is almost harder because golf, your name in a tournament, you mentioned tournament golf, Howard, that name stays up there for weeks and years. You have a bad comedy show. Hopefully nobody notices.
Well,
No one's called, but your dad's not going to read about it the next day. Like you're 84.
No one wants to. Listen, man, I shot in the mid-am. This is only a couple of years ago. I hadn't played any competitive golf for a while. I shot 92 in the mid-am, and I get in my car, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm getting like sympathy messages, like, what's the matter? Are you okay? But you eat it at some club where you're working out material. No one gives a shit. It's a bunch of, it's just, no one's like going, what, in the 3rd minute, what happened there?
Yeah, but you read it on the golf course and they write it in calligraphy.
That's right. That's right.
With 2 different colored markers. Oh, we have a red one for his good hole and then a lot of black.
That's funny.
Well, one of the things that I think has got to be so similar is for often with golfers is what happens is they shine this very tight spotlight on themselves going, how am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing the right thing? Do I have the right jokes queued up? And I think what Howard and I have talked about in terms of stand-up and golf is that we have to be out there. You have to be concerned with what's going on with these people. What are they hearing? What's their night like? What's the mood like? When I can, and it's essentially adapting to what's out there. Is that your experience?
Yeah, 100%. And as Howard pointed out earlier, it's the same in golf too. You got to get out of your head. In comedy, you can run out the clock. That's one advantage. In golf, you're locked in till you putt out, as we saw with Scheffler on 18. You still have to get it in the hole.
Yeah.
So I think there's way too much time to think in golf.
Yes.
Between shots, and your own head is a labyrinth of darkness that you don't want to spend too much time in. There's a lot of ghouls and gremlins and ghosts of bad shots missed. So when it starts going bad in a tournament, I've always said, I tried to explain it to my wife, tournament golf to me is like going on a long drive with a policeman right behind you the whole time.
That's very good.
Right? It's a 4-hour, even when you're not doing anything wrong, you're constantly checking the mirror. Go, I think I'm okay here. I think I'm okay. What am I doing? Calm down. And yet you're just always worried that this is one moment away. So you're never relaxed. And the other thing about tournament golf is, like a relationship, your weaknesses are going to be exposed. Yes. At some point. Whatever it is that you're afraid of in your golf game, it's going to come out. Hopefully early enough you can deal with it. Otherwise, on the back nine, on the final round, you're going to have to hit that 4-iron you don't like, or that bunker shot you can't stand.
But stand-up's kind of like that. I mean, not in the same way. And by the way,
you can hide in stand-up, and you can control it to get away from your weakness.
yeah, well, it depends on how long you're doing. Like, for you who was regularly doing longer sets and 45 to an hour corporately and whatever. But I'll tell you, I had to do a gig in December, a corporate gig, a great one actually. And they wanted me to do 40 minutes. And I hadn't done longer than 10 or 15 for a while. And to do 40, your weaknesses are going to be exposed, because there's some stuff there in the middle that I'm like, I hope this works, because I'm going to stretch this, because I knew I had 15 at the end that was going to be great. But it was that middle part I was like, I'm not sure if this is going to go all that well. But you're right, in golf, once it starts going bad, you can't, as you say, run out the clock. You can't just go, I'm going to go right to my closer and we'll be done here. How do you draw when it does go poorly for you the odd time? How do you draw on that to turn it around on stage? Because in golf, you just sometimes one good shot can turn the round around. How do you turn an audience around?
I blame them. I absolutely blame them, and I stop everything and I go, look, I don't think you guys understand how this works. But when I stop talking, you're supposed to laugh, fill that part in. That's how that, and I've tested my stuff. I know what I'm doing. You guys, I'm not so sure about.
That's funny.
No, but sometimes it's very much like golf. If you're not drawing the ball well, try a fade. And I don't know the skill level of the audience, so I don't mean to be, why not just hit a 290-yard 3-wood if you're bored? I mean, do something to scratch the record that's playing in your head, to get rid of, do like cold water on your face equivalent of, okay, I don't know how to do this thing today, so I'm going to try something completely different, and maybe I'll pull it off, or maybe at least it'll shock me into a different state and I can go back to do that thing, because I'll miss it so much. If you try getting naked, so to speak, and exposing yourself by admitting, I don't know what to do here, very often you will find a way back to what you do know how to do just by saying it out loud.
Okay. But I think that one of what golfers fear is that being naked. They want to always appear competent. Do they look good? I know how to do this. I can close. And one of the greatest fears I know through my own experience of playing is that I'm going to show up not as the ideal player I want. And there's that fear and that identity piece around, oh, I guess I'm not as good as a golfer. Oh, I'm going to be a hack. Oh, Dad was right. I suck.
Yeah, and that's why you need a short game. If you have a good short game, you can spray it. And if you have the confidence, you can get up and down. It really frees up your golf swing. I find if you believe you can make 6-footers, no problem. And if you believe you can pitch it over a bunker or out of a bunker with a plum, with skill set, then you're free to rip at the 3-wood from 260. You're free to try to cut the 4-iron from 210.
So if you're struggling in your act, which is hard to imagine, but do you have kind of, okay, this tonight's not working, the crowd's not responding. Do you have kind of like, do you go to sort of your strengths and you're just going to hammer this to get home and close the deal?
Yeah. Let's just play a little butter fade and get the hell out of here.
Okay, just hold on, 3-finger rip. Yeah, by the way, you reminded me about that watching Scheffler 4-putt for the win. Do you think after the 3rd putt, his caddy leaned in and went, "Just stop this now. Just stop it. This is embarrassing, everybody."
I gotta believe after he missed the 3rd one that the underwear band got a little wet.
I'd say.
I gotta believe a little flop sweat in the back.
David, I was speaking of fly. It's funny because, again, apropos of not your appearance, but a guy that I know called me up yesterday and he was telling me he signed up for his first spot on amateur night. And I said to him, hey, listen, go enjoy yourself. It'll be great. But I said, just know this. If it doesn't go well, you're going to have to burn the clothing you're wearing. I said, because there's a reason they call it dyeing or flop sweat. I remember early on, this is back in my Vancouver days when I used to wear blazers, Dave, before you started doing stand-up. We all had blazers. I remember I bombed so bad that the fabric, the smell never left the fabric. I had to, because that's what it is. It's the smell of your body dying.
Exactly. I once shot 80 in purple shorts. Never, no one's ever seen those shorts again.
No kidding. I want to finish off by saying it's funny. I'm looking at it. I could, if you want Dave's resume, he's done everything. He's on the debaters. He's done galas just for laughs. I feel like if I was emceeing, what I would actually say is, here, the next guy's done all the festivals. You look it up. But I know you've done big theaters. I've done it a couple of times. I've done a couple of 1,000-seat theaters a couple of times. When you're in those rooms, is it like a bigger tournament feels like, when you're playing at your club championship versus the Canadian amateur, it's like a little bit different. Do you feel different in those situations or when you're doing a TV set?
Yes. Yes. And I feel much more comfortable.
Really?
Because with a big theater, if 50 people don't like me, I'm not going to know who they are.
Yeah.
But if you play a room of 70 people and 50 people don't like you, I know exactly who they are. I know everyone.
That's right. Some of them are your friends. Like, nah, not buying it, Dave.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, for me, and this is true of golf and of comedy. And again, it's one of those things where luckily I had it. I like being nervous. That's the feeling I want. That's what I'm waiting all year for, is something to get me revved up. For me, nervous, people use a negative context to it. I don't know why. It's your superpowers. It's you now have a chance to access parts of your brain and body that you can't normally. So when I'm not nervous, that's when I get worried.
Mm-hmm.
But when I am nervous, that just means every part of my body cares about how this goes. That means I'm entirely in the moment and I want to be here so badly that I'm concerned that I won't be able to execute. And so learning how to breathe and enjoy that, you can hit it farther, you can be funnier. Those are your superpowers. Yeah. You have to want to be nervous.
Yeah, as I said, so many golfers are afraid of that. But as you said, if you can channel it, but maybe a similar thing in terms of a small club versus a big tournament. A lot of golfers say in their club C, they play in a couple of member events, they get in their club C, and it's their big event. So as Howard's joke made, it's the first time you ever see him on the practice range. It's the night before.
You can always call the club championships the next day. You see some guy chipping who's never chipped in his life. You're like, what are you
doing here? Exactly. But they go into the round thinking that if I do this thing with my weight transfer and if I hinge my wrist and I make sure I do this thing with my head, I'll be great. And it never is great because they're not able to get into a flow state. Is it similar for you in terms of you work on your material, set it up the way you want, and then you just go on stage and then just kind of whatever happens?
Yeah, to some degree, yes. Golf and comedy, for me, getting that first laugh is like getting that first birdie or making that first putt. It's just that's the okay, I know what I'm doing here. I can handle this moment. If you go, the further you go into the round without making a putt, the more it starts to weigh on you. Mm-hmm. Well, same with the comedy show. The further you go without getting a laugh, the more that starts to weigh on you. So it's key to, you always want to just hit the fairway, hit the green on the first hole, 2-putt, get out of there. Same with comedy. You want to have a nice short length joke with a laugh pretty early on, just to get comfortable. Let's not try to rewrite the history books on this first joke. Let's not write the epic saga that's going to change comedy. Let's just get a nice, clean, quick joke in here, get a laugh so we can settle in.
Before I let you go, I just remember, and excuse me if I'm getting this wrong because it could be completely stupid, but didn't you and I do a show at a ski lodge sometime in the last 10 years? I had this memory, and it was you and me at that private ski event.
I think it was about 14 years ago.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Because all I remember is this. Here's the thing. It's a lodge full of mostly guys. I think it was a men's night ski event, and I was brought in to MC, and you were the headliner. And I did like 15 and was just kind of giving away prizes, and it was an unruly room of sort of semi-drunk dudes. And I got to tell you, now that I remembered it, I bring you up, and I'd never seen anybody in that environment turn a room around like you did. And it wasn't that you were the material wasn't the point. It was how you played the game that night. Because in a room like that, you can't do the subtle, cool, quirky little plays on words. And you just had to own the room. And I remember it now. I remember you came off. I was so impressed by that. And that probably more than anything else is why you've done so well, is that you're able to adapt. Your background as a golfer prepared you for situations where, hey, it's a 4-club wind and you know it's 7 degrees and you still have to do your job as a professional.
Well, you have to embrace that challenge.
Yes.
You have to recognize that, okay, this isn't a game of I come up and do my jokes and leave. This is a game of I am completely set up to fail here.
Yes.
There's nothing going my way, but I did have you on my side. Like we had a laugh in the exchange.
I thought you were hilarious.
So I know I've got one guy rooting for me in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Now I just got to win over these 699 other drunks.
But it speaks to golf. Is that adapt or die?
Yeah.
You have to adapt to what's out there. You can have the greatest set, whatever, or you could make great golf swings. But if you're not adapting to what's out there, you're going to die.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes 72 is a phenomenal score. You know, a lot of times you think going into it, I have to shoot my best round. No, you don't. You have to stay competent and you have to not lose your head in this 4-club wind. You know, in this muddiness, you have to forget everything that you came with, as you pointed out earlier, Tim. Throw out the game plan and trust your instincts to adapt to the elements and just play this round. Just play this round. It doesn't compare to any other round. Just survive this round.
No, that's a great point. And I think even in everyday golf, for some reason, golfers somehow they think they're supposed to shoot. They're supposed to play great every day. And that's not how the game, that's not how stand-up is. That's not how your life is.
Nothing bad's going to happen today.
Yeah. Well, that's my theory, is that people approach golf like they approach life, which is today's the day, nothing bad will happen to me. And as soon as you get in traffic and you get cut off, it's like, what the hell? As soon as, every golfer on the first tee is in a great mood because they're not under par or over par. They're just, golf hasn't, eaten their lunch. Dave, we're going to let you go. I want to mention that Dave recently has been hosting a show with our guy, Mark Zucchino. You see him on TV. Dave is called Off the Hosel. I'm sure it's still available. I know you guys aren't producing it, but it's still available for people to watch. And as far as your golf goes, I think you've won like 10 club championships in a row, or what is it? Where are you at now?
14.
Is it really
14 Summit Club Championships? Yeah, I won't be able to play this year. I may play in the Ontario Mid-Am, so I might see you there. I don't know if you're still playing.
I am. It's funny. I've played in a bunch of Mid-Ams. I'm not playing this year. I played in I'm in the senior Ontario Senior Am now, and but do the guys at Summit? Great Hemstad. Thanks for winning every club championship.
Well, no, I'm beating the children of the fathers I used to beat. So.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So it's generations of disdain for me. I'm experiencing now.
Generations of disdain.
Hey,
Go ahead. One thought, Howard, for your listeners, and one tip, if I could offer one.
Sure.
As far as relaxing the emotional control goes, going into the rounds you talked about, my number one tip for everybody: stop swinging the driver like it's unlimited. Swing the driver like a wedge. You don't try to hit your 7-iron 240 yards. Why are you trying to hit your driver 300 yards? It doesn't go that far. Your driver has a carry distance, same as every other club in the bag. If yours is 220, that's what it is. Just swing it like a wedge all day. Your shoulders are relaxed. The tension will come right out of you. You won't get nervous on the tee because you're trying to unlock this one phenomenal drive you've never hit. So my tip, swing the driver like a wedge.
I love that. And I was just mentioning, Tim's on his way to see the Debaters live. Where are you going to see it tonight?
At the River Run in Guelph.
Are you there?
Awesome. I am not, but our good friend Steve Patterson will be hosting. I believe Derek Sagan and Erica Sigurdsson.
Oh yeah. No, it's gonna be fun. I love that show.
Awesome people.
And here's the cool thing: is that Dave's golf career and his Debaters career is similar. Our differences are the same. I've done 4 or 5 Debaters and played a few rounds of tournament golf, but you've done how many episodes of the Debaters, Dave?
I've lost count, Howard, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it.
No, I know. It's
30, it's probably in the 40s.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was telling Tim before the show, I said, I did about 4 or 5 episodes and, the late 2000s and 2008s or whatever. And then I did the last one in 2012. And I said, I think Dave's done like He's done like 40 or 50 of them for sure. If you get a chance to see Dave Hemstad play golf, it's something. But if you watch him on stage, you're going to enjoy it. Hey, Dave, I really appreciate this, man.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
I appreciate you. And Howard, you may not have done a lot of debaters, but you have a show with your name in the title, and that's more impressive. So well done, you.
Part of my name, but thanks very much. Dave Hemstad, everybody. Look at that sweet man. Dave, just let yourself out of the room, and I hope to catch up to you again sometime.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you again.
Thank you, Dave. Bye.
That was, I knew he'd be great because he's got an insight. He understands the psychology of it. That thing that Dave was saying about, we've said it in different ways too, about how far you hit your driver. Another way to express that is if somebody asks you how far you hit your 7-iron, you would tell them, 150 yards. And then when you had 150 yards, you take out your 7-iron. But for some reason, it's what he said. Everyone thinks they have some weird secret unlimited yardages with their driver. If you hit it 220, that's how far you should try and hit it.
I know, it's like everyone becomes Buzz Lightyears from to infinity and beyond.
I know. And it's just the strangest thing. No one tries to hit their 7-iron 190 if you normally hit it 150. Yeah, but he's a beauty, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was really great to have him. As you say, a great get. I actually had not heard of this gentleman until I heard him on the CBC program LOL about 6 weeks ago. And he just did this bit that I thought was amazing. He said, well, my car was stolen. He goes, well, actually, it was towed. And he talked about, he says, he said, it was a no parking zone, but I needed to go in that store. And he said he put on his flashers, which basically say, I know.
Yeah, he's very good.
Oh, I thought that was so good.
It's interesting. I can't even imagine somebody else in stand-up that has gotten as successful. He's very successful in Canada. I mean, I didn't read his resume, but go check it out, folks. It's really something else. I know a lot of people listening. Oh, I've never heard of him, but that's like
Canada.
A lot of that's Canada. But it's also like a lot of stand-ups.
Yeah, totally.
I have 4 or 5 favorites I could name now that most people have never heard of. But it's the same with professional golfers. Scotty Scheffler, 60 days ago, most casual, golf fans probably weren't that familiar with the guy. And there's lots of guys. That's the problem that's why they're so similar in that there's hundreds of great professional golfers that could easily be up in that echelon if they had a better, maybe they had a chance or whatever. But same with stand-up. Like I was at Yuck Yucks a couple of weeks ago. I saw a couple of kids that I've watched over the last 3 or 4 years that are really, really good. And chances are you may never hear about them, right?
Mm-hmm. That's part of popular culture. People that, it sounds, I don't mean to say it in a derisive way, but, the masses, if you will, unless you're really into something, you just know kind of top level. The top 2 or 3 people are who the hippity hop stars are, or the or the country people, or whatever.
I love that you called them the hippity hop people. I love that.
Yeah, I just obviously stole that from someone else. But it was like, people would say, "Oh, you've written a book. Who'd you write the book about?" This guy Mo Norman. Oh, it's quite obvious they've never heard of him, and that's okay. It's just, but unfortunately, there's a tendency in our society, unless someone has achieved some degree of notoriety, then it's like, I guess they're not very good. And it also speaks to what you said about popular culture in general, which is if you're not into whatever thing you're into, you could say like the day we're recording this is the day after it was announced that Gilbert Gottfried died. And a stand-up comedian I've loved since I lived in Los Angeles. I went and saw him at the Improv. But if you don't know who he is as a comedian and what he meant to comedy, you'd be like, oh yeah, I heard, isn't he the guy who was the voice of a cartoon character or something? But in the world of stand-up comedy, he's a legend, this guy. But, same thing with, golf. If you don't know who Maverick McNeely is, he's one of the best players on planet Earth. But if you're like, Fred, who I work with, he doesn't know who he is. He would never, because he's too far down, right?
Like, I don't know the Leafs, but I know who Austin Matthews is. But other than that, like a few others, you could name a few players on that team. I wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting though is that if we can give each other a bit of time, it's almost like listening to somebody who you meet. If you really listen and have some curiosity, then you can learn some pretty cool stuff. I kind of feel like I'm giving people shit for not caring about Canadian stand-up comics or the fellows who toil in the underworld of the PGA Tour, but maybe that's just something that we could connect to something else in terms of that ability to listen and not make it, and just kind of like, oh, and just to delve a little bit deeper. That's, I don't know, maybe that's part of the art of comedy is people look deeper at things than most people. Like I remember George Carlin doing a bit on wire coat hangers. Mm-hmm. Like who would think to do something on wire coat hangers? Or you got it's that willingness to look a little bit deeper at things. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
I don't think anyone thinks you're giving anyone shit because you are, of course, an angel here on earth. I wanted to just segue. You could hear the music, the Masters. We already alluded to the fact that Scotty Scheffler got to 4-putt to win. Want to get some of your thoughts. Tiger was great. I'll give you quickly for me, my top line. I watched a lot of it. I watched a lot of coverage each day. It was great. I always get to Sunday afternoon, I'm a bit sad, like, aw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know. You and I were texting back and forth like children. I think Tiger, what can you say about it? It was amazing. The fact he shot 71 after not playing for 17 months. Listen, if he had been healthy and just hadn't played for 17 months because of another injury, what he did would have been remarkable. But, it just goes to show you. I have a couple little, decade things, but like, his round in the third and fourth round, 3-putting and 4-putting. I actually thought he swung the club really, really well, especially in the third and fourth. He hit his driver great.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show you that that's not where golf scores come from. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Tiger, every time, it's so interesting. Is every time people write off Tiger, he goes, no, not done. And I think that so much of it, he just doesn't identify. So I'm effing Tiger Woods. I just think there's just this homing beacon within that fellow that is just, we're going forward, whatever it takes. I mean, he said that I don't think he took a day off from rehab since he was able to, start rehab. Right. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, there's days, I do, I work out, but there's days when it's like, really?
No, I know.
I just don't want to. But you want to persevere in this world, you do the work. And I mean, he just does the work. And I just find that I find like so inspiring. And can you imagine the kind of pain that fellow was in for all that? I mean, as it went on, the limp became more pronounced. His gait changed. He had to be in a ton of pain. And to be able to, I don't know, compartmentalize or whatever, but just to be able to stay the focus that he was able to maintain despite everything going on, just incredible.
No, we don't need to spend a lot of time on Tiger because I think most people by now have had a real sense of the fact he's probably going to continue to play. He said he was going to play St. Andrews. Mm-hmm. I just think it's remarkable that, there's a list of guys he beat. They were all playing golf the last 17 months when he was taking ice baths or whatever he was doing. Yeah. So we're texting back and forth, Tim and I. Scheffler's having a, decent final round. Couple things that happened, I would tell you, that for me were huge mistakes. Obviously, Cam Smith hitting it in the water on 12. I'll get to in a second. Where it changed for me is, Scheffler was a bit nervous, had kind of pull hooked his drive on 18 Saturday. Sunday starts with a couple of lefts, and lefts come from being nervous. And on 3, when he glooped, as my buddy Paul says, he glooped his second shot short of the green. Once he's glooped, Cam Smith, all he has to do is get the ball on the green. okay, Decade fans, you don't have to get it close at that point. You just need to not gloop it as well. Now, I don't know what was going on in the mullet head, but what I think he might have been thinking is, oh, I have an opportunity now. If I get it close, then I can pick up a shot or maybe two. The problem with it is, and this is, you've heard me say this a million times now, by trying to get it close sometimes, you bring gloop into play. And so that was a huge mistake. Now, the fact that Scheffler knocks it in is a double momentum killer, because a second ago you were thinking I could pick up a shot. Now you've got to also get your shot on the green. And of course, Cam Smith hits his third shot where his second shot should have been 2 putts. And for me, that was part of it. And again, if you want to pop in and your thoughts on that.
Well, in that instance, it becomes match play.
Yes.
And gloop. So before we go further in this, please elucidate, elaborate on this marvelous new word that I've just picked up and want to put in my lexicon. Gloop.
Well, it's another word for glooping it is another word for like two chipping it. Like you just glooped it. You just kind of like, you're supposed to get a shot from 50 yards onto the green if you're the 6th ranked player on planet Earth.
Right.
But that shot wasn't neither of their. I mean, Scotty Scheffler's was out of nerves. I mean, I know they're in the prize draw, whatever. Yeah. But I guarantee you, if it's not the final round on Sunday, both of them hit their second shots onto the green.
Anyways, back to the match play thing that I was talking about. I thought that I was somewhat shocked that Smith didn't actually just kind of go long or just get that thing on the green somewhere. That was like, what? And I just couldn't understand what happened there. And again, to continue that, the analogy to match play, that's what can happen. Someone chips in. It's almost like you have to expect that to happen. And I think it was kind of a poof to Smith again, that this unexpected thing happened. And I think that's maybe, this guy's 6th ranked player in the world, just one of the players, won the Sony or whatever it's called these days. I'm an obviously amateur prognosticator here, but I still think there's a part of his game that in terms of the decision-making process that needs to come up a level.
So, back to the match play. So they go through the front 9, they settle down, both played pretty nicely. And then Cam Smith sinks the putt on 11, makes a birdie, and now he's within 2 with 6 holes to go. I said this to somebody yesterday. Has he never seen the Masters? Is this his first time is he not aware of the tournament? Has he not
what can happen?
Yeah. Did he not watch Tiger in 2019? Like, you've just birdied 11. And then he gets up, and I can tell you, again, I don't want to decade you kids, but where he was aimed, his body lines, and I've been going back and forth with Fawcett a little bit on this.
Oh, interesting.
And seeing what Scott has written online, and Smith later said, "Well, no, I wasn't aiming to over there." But he's a guy that draws the ball. But in that circumstance, when you've just picked up some momentum and you're on, plus you got the tee, you get to hit it first. Match play. You get to put it on the green, put some pressure on the kid, and hit it somewhere where you can make nothing worse than 4. Back bunker, front bunker, left, something. But to hit the ball in the water, it did 2 things. It gave Scotty Scheffler a free swing, and he took it. And it also, kind of you and I were like, oh, well, there goes the back of it went.
There goes the drum of the back 9.
Drama's gone.
Oh, shit.
And say what you want about Rory, who backed into a top 2.
Yeah.
That was exciting, and it was fun, but it was never going to be a factor in the outcome of the tournament.
That, to me, I read what Smith said. No, I wasn't aiming at that pin, but then you really did not, you didn't do enough to not aim at it. Yeah. I just thought there's just no way in hell that ball, just as you mentioned, you pick up a birdie, you're right there. It could be a momentum changer. You have to get that ball on terra firma. Even if you go long, most of the times it's going to trickle off that hill
into the bunker. Yeah,
and you can get up and down. I mean, you watched it happen Yeah, a bunch of guys hit it back there into the bush, and then whoop, out it comes down. So I don't know. I'll come back to this point that I made a couple podcasts ago, that I think that Smith, somewhat like a Mickelson, is an instinctual player and is naturally kind of aggressive. But I think that there's a point of diminishing returns on that. He got through that somehow at the Players. He hit that wedge shot, despite the data not being there that he could hit it that freaking close and one putt it. He got away with it to some degree. So I don't know. I just think there's some kind of balance that he's going to strike in his game, where he can just maybe make some better decisions in crunch moments.
Well, isn't it interesting that, a lot of our listeners, and you and I are among the people that used to think this way, that, you can, as I say, you can't golf swing your way to a lower score, but it turns out you also can't make poor decisions, because he can say that, I know I read that, he said I wasn't aiming at it, but where you should have been aiming is that because everyone has a shot pattern, and what showed up for Cam Smith on that particular shot was the short, blocky right. For a right-handed golfer, your shot pattern is simple. There's only three places it goes: long left, where you're straight, or short right.
That's
Generally,
right.
those are the three. So if I don't want to get too geeky on you, but that's what it looks like. So what happened to him was the short right part of his shot pattern. He should have been aiming so far to the left that if the short right showed up, it had been in the front bunker.
Mm-hmm.
And the point I guess I'm making is, it wasn't his golf swing, it was his golf game that broke down.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, because the interesting thing that Fawcett has helped us understand through strokes gained and everything is that even the best players in the world have a very wide shot pattern, and that and particularly under the gun, they're not always going to hit it right at the pin. They're not going to hit it in the right location on the green at Augusta. They're just going to be up there somewhere. So there has to be an adjustment for that. And so it was just really interesting. I didn't look through Twitter on what Scott Fawcett had to say. What did Fawcett say about Smith and that shot?
All the things you can imagine, just like, and there was a bunch of people going back and forth. And you said that Smith said it was just a bad swing, but this is a good point for the average player. Bad swings are the result of a lot of things that are less about the technical part of what went wrong. In that particular case, what went wrong was it was a bad decision. And when you're standing over the ball, I'm sure it didn't feel right to him. Something felt off to him. I was talking about this with some good players yesterday. I got a chance to play with some very good golfers. And we were talking about that. And, the debate was, when it doesn't feel right, like maybe what he should have done is backed away, taken more time. I think what happened was he got excited. I made a birdie on 11, rare birdie, and now I'm in the game. And maybe he could have just taken a little, maybe his caddy could have said, hey, let's just settle down here for an extra minute. Let's just simmer down and let's really get focused on what we're going to do. And I don't think they did.
Yeah, well, in many ways, I hate playing Monday morning quarterback, but I think it's through trying to kind of parse what happened, we get a greater understanding. But again, I come back to this thing. I don't know Cam Smith, quite obviously, but I just have a sense there's a go for it mentality. And I set up and I go. I've never seen him back off a shot. He's got a very brisk pre-shot routine. Takes care of business like that. So my sense is he got over it, and what was ever going on, we're doing this. But I think ultimately it comes back to just a not good decision about where he was going to start that ball.
All right. I want everyone to know you can still get, we're not wrapping the whole thing up, but I want to pause here and say Tim and Nate have begun their series, Quiet Mind Golf. First one was last week. You can still get in on the summer series. It's a 6-month commitment, and it really is worth it. Just give us a sense. You had your first, I think last week you guys had your first session. Plus, there's follow-up calls, and it's quite extensive. But I think for the avid player, someone that wants to really get a sense on what it takes to get better, Tim and Nate are your guys. And how do people sign up if they can?
The easiest place to go is to my website, o'connorgolf.ca, and you can see all the details there. And just email me or give me a call. My phone number's in there too. Yeah, we started on Friday. It was awesome. We had it at our favorite place, Sean Casey's Burl Oak Indoor Golf. They have that. They have that exactly big. And so we were on the big short game area. I mean, it's lovely practice area. And so we did a bunch of experiences. So speaking of drinking games, Fred Shoemaker, I've learned so much from Fred from his workshops around giving people experiences in putting. And we put people through these really interesting exercises. And it was phenomenal what these guys were getting from it in terms of just like learning, like, that they don't have to be thinking about keeping their head still and hinge this and accelerate the putter and all that kind of good stuff. They really got a sense of how competent they really are when they let their natural ability go, and when they let that control go, and they really just have this way of allowing themselves to play. That their bodies can really putt really well, and they're far more competent than they ever have imagined. So some of them, it was really interesting. And that's kind of the gateway for the rest of the program, is for people to understand that they don't have to be thinking all this stuff, and they don't have to match some kind of model or do it right. They all have their own way of doing it, and they'll learn from their own experience. So yeah, it was a great start. And we had our discussion call last night, in which guys could basically reflect on that experience and ask some questions of each other. It was really fun, and yeah, so a great start to our program.
O'Connor Golf's O'ConnorGolf.ca is Tim's website. I saw a friend of ours yesterday, Dave Newsom.
Yeah,
and he said something to me. I don't know what I said to him. I said, because I'd gotten the tee time wrong. I screwed up the tee time. He said, yeah, you still haven't got O'Connor's website right. There's a listener.
Hey, so thank you for inquiring. How's it going being the Decade Sherpa?
It's good. I've got, of course, client confidentiality, but I think I'm up to 6.
Fantastic.
Clients. Are they clients? Are these clients? I don't know what they are. Friends now. So got
clients. Yeah, that's the business words. You could call them grasshoppers or something.
And it's good. I'm learning. I've learned it's like relearning some of the decade stuff. But I wanted to say to what you just said about a lot of times people don't realize their natural abilities, and that's one of the great things about Quiet Mind. But I would tell you, I played yesterday with. Well, I'll tell you. One of them was Lars Melander, who used to play.
Wow.
Lars is a buddy of mine. He's played in the Canadian Open.
Oh, great player.
Great golfer. Another guy is my better ball partner, Jamie Cavanaugh, +2.
Yep.
And another guy that was like a 2. So the whole group handicap is like nothing. And these 3 guys are big fans of Casey's. They spend all winter at BIT there, Burlington Indoor Golf. Is it
BIG?
BIG, sorry. Where was I getting T from? I'm an idiot. Anyway, BIG. I'm literally yelling BIT like a moron. Anyway.
Thanks for confirming your humanity.
No, but it's true. Like a minute ago, I'm going, BIT, like I don't know Burlington Indoor Golf has a T in it? God damn it.
You did a show today. Maybe you're just reaching your limit.
Yeah, I have been sitting in this chair for 5 hours. Anyway.
Exactly.
But these 3 guys are guys I really respect. Lars was my partner in the Club Link shootout last year. He was in my group at a invitational or 2, and I really look up to him. And he's been good for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I say this because I'm always interested in what guys like that, well, how do they talk about golf? And I'm just going to say, they don't talk about it the way we do. And I'm going to say this with respect. That even those guys still think that you need to have that the golf swing is the pathway to betterment in the game. And I said to my buddy Henrik on the way home, I'm like, I find it weird listening to really good players, guys that can shoot low scores. Like, how do they miss it? Because they were literally, and Lars loves to tinker with his swing, and he hit it great yesterday. I sent him a note today saying, man, it was great to watch you play yesterday. And he was very complimentary of me. But I still think it's interesting, Tim, that even veteran players like that are all excellent, still I don't think they really get where scores come from, because they're still thinking that, man, if I could just get this club in the slot somewhere, or, I'm working on this. And one of the guys the third guy in the group was a very fine player, said, yeah, Lars has been working with me and he's really got me tuned up. And I'm like, I said to myself, swing looks exactly the same to me. no different. And he was hitting it great. And I'm like, just whatever Lars is, this is what I said to him, whatever Lars is telling you, keep doing it. It looks great.
Exactly.
But I just find that part fascinating, because I think about it in such different terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from on that. And it is interesting. But you think about a guy like, think of like Scotty Scheffler or even Dave Hemstad. What I mean by, like, Scheffler's footwork, it's kind of a mystery.
Yeah.
What's he doing with those feet? Don't know, but apparently it works for him. Doesn't match any kind of model I've ever seen. But Dave Hemstad, never once did he talk about, he said you've got your preferred shot, but performance is not about grinding on these little details. And I think that a lot of good players play at a high level because they play a lot. You play a lot, but what I mean is that if you can keep kind of grinding on some of these details, I think that you can play pretty well, but I don't think they reach their potential. And I think there's a lot of emotional upset sometimes when players like that, for the average golfer, it's kind of like they've attained enlightenment, but they really haven't. They could be far better than they really were if they were able to find this balance of being able to find what works for them in hitting shots, seeing what happened. And taking, there has to be an awareness of your fundamentals and what's going on. But if that becomes your focus, then I just think golf doesn't become as much fun. And you rarely get to those places where you go super low or just have these amazing experiences where you just hit shots and go like, what just happened there?
Well, obviously, I agree with you. I think what it is, it's not that those guys couldn't shoot lower. It's what happens to it. Let's just take those people out of the equation, because I respect all three of them. They're so good. What it is, though, is on the days when it's not going well, if you still think that your golf swing is making a difference, you're missing what is actually making a difference. And Hemstad touched on it a little bit in terms of, being present, and I said that to you recently. Like, I've learned more about doing stand-up because of the work I've done in my golf game than I ever did when I was just doing stand-up. Like, the analogy of your material is like your golf swing. Yeah, once you've tuned it up, if you go out on stage and you're still thinking about, what am I going to say? How do I say it perfectly? You're missing the point of, I know I was going to say this to Hemstad. I know we're pretty funny, and chances are these jokes that I've done before that have worked 100 times, if they don't work tonight, well, as he said, sometimes you not turn on the audience, but really you kind of have to recognize that I've played this course before. Maybe today isn't my day, or it's not my fault, or the wind is high, but you sort of forgive yourself, which I don't think a lot of golfers, myself included, I don't think we're used to doing that, forgiving ourselves for having not being perfect. But if I'll finish by saying, I think it's the expectation of perfection that gets in our way.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, completely. The game is so much more than just the score, but if it's all about just the scorecard, I think we're missing so much of what golf has to offer, and it's the fun, it's the camaraderie, but it's also discovery and learning, and I think that what players who just come to other levels, they have a deeper experience of what's actually going on with them. They start to understand their habitual patterns, their thinking, why perhaps they call the names they call themselves, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, it's kind of like, look, it's like what Judson Brewer, the psychologist, said on our show. He says, looking for love in all the wrong places. If we're looking for perfection in terms of what we're going to do with our left knee or our right eyebrow, and we do happen to shoot a low score that day, I'm not sure that golf really deliver the happiness that everyone in golf culture says it's going to?
Let me just jump in there about what Judson said. Like, I've been using that, not that quote, but was talking about not knowing where to look to where scores are. And that is a big adjustment since 2017, since we took the seminar together. And I don't think I understood it as well then, obviously, as I've
the
done
decade seminar.
Yeah, as the last couple of years. But knowing where scores live, knowing the things that affect scores has led me, at least, and I think other people that have sort of started to follow along with this. And by the way, I'd heard a rumor, and Fawcett will never confirm it because of client confidentiality, but there's a rumor that Rory has started to work with the decade system.
I thought Rory was giving that away a little bit.
A little bit.
In the pre-Masters conference, he talked about discipline and patience, and I never heard Rory ever talk about that.
And the thing is, and I won't get into the debate now about, is this ruining the game? Because you can still be, the idea is you can still be creative, but knowing a system like this, it takes some of the guesswork out of what you're going to do. And the second part of it is, and I was the worst. I couldn't imagine ever golfing without spending an hour and a half on the range before the round, and I've got to do all these things. And as I say to my older brother, David, I'm not going to the golf course looking for my swing every day. And that is, more than anything else, has made me a little happier to play. Happier playing, knowing that there's a variance of score. It can't be perfect every day. I'm not as frustrated because, my golf swing has been pretty decent. It's okay, but I don't hit every shot perfectly. And in the end, I don't do in the last, I played Monday and Tuesday. I hadn't played golf in 6-7 weeks. And I had a couple of good rounds, not because of how well I hit it. I hit it well enough. But back to what Hemstad was referring to, sometimes you have to go on stage and just trust that you know what you're doing. And I don't think enough of us golfers trust that our ability is in there. If you just let it be in there and not, again, like the idea of the driver. I have an amount of golf energy I can put on a golf ball. I'm not trying to do more than that. And there's that throughout your entire game. So, I think sometimes us golfers don't really know. And you made a really nice point there a second ago about if you think you had a good score that day and you thought it was because of your golf swing, then you're always going to be at the mercy of hoping your good golf swing shows up or you can't score.
Yeah, well, what I find, to me, golf, like stand-up or other things, it's the joy, I think, is in the creativity of it within parameters.
Yeah.
If you want to kill it in stand-up, well, you can, but you've got 8 minutes you're allotted. You got to work within that. And so so we talked about adapting to your audience, to what's going on. You had something interesting happen that day. You noticed something, you mentioned, I remember before, about seeing a daughter and a father in the audience, and reacting to that. That's creativity within the parameters of what you were given there. And the same within golf is that we're going to be creative within the parameters that this hole has perhaps out of bounds on the right and some water on the left, and it's 410 par 4. But if for me, performance is about me trying to go to the first tee and remember something that I need to do in my swing, I just don't see how I could ever get freed up. There's going to be days in which the club does find the slot.
Sure.
And I'm able to let it go. But if it's about trying to remember to do the right things, I just don't see that as a zone where I'm going to be able to achieve a degree of flow and performance, I'll come back to that word, which is creating things. And that, to me, what golf is. It's not about doing this thing with my hips and my feet. It's about, okay, I got this shot here that I'm going to try and hit. I'm going to start it here and flight it there. That's golf to me, and that's fun.
Well, yeah, I'm laughing too because I think all of us have had this experience. I've had it less over the last few years, which is standing over the ball, and maybe it's because we're getting older, forgetting what. Like I'm like standing there for a second, going like, "What was it?
Exactly.
What am I supposed to be working on?"
What's my mantra?
I forgot my swing thought. And I can tell you right now, like I did stand up. I did stand up about 2 weeks ago, and I had a great set. I blew through the time, but other than that, I had a great set. I did 16 minutes, and in a golf analogy, it was even par or maybe a little bit better. Like it was a great round for me. But in that set, and I just remember I had a couple in the middle, in the middle of the round, I had a couple shots that didn't come off. But it's being able to recover. It's like, okay, so that didn't work, but I still have the momentum of the round. It didn't wreck the round. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you react poorly to a bad shot on stage, like, if the audience senses, and I've said this for my entire stand-up life, they know, I'm sure, let me put it this way, all they want to know is that they're going to be okay and that you're going to be okay. And what I mean by that is they can sense that, hey, it didn't work. You're still smiling. You're okay. They're okay. They don't have to be embarrassed for you. What makes an audience uncomfortable and drunken audiences angry is when a comic is flailing and they can see it's affecting them. You start to shrink. You don't expand. But as Hemstad said, like the best way to do it is to call it out and go, "Excuse me, that's a good joke. You're stupid." Everyone else is, that attitude of like, everything's fine. And in that set I did at Yuck Yucks a couple of Friday nights ago, yeah, I had a couple of things that didn't land. But I was in such a good mood, and the mood in the room was good that it didn't matter to us. And I mean, I might have even said, okay, you didn't like that. Let's go on to the next thing on our agenda. But whatever it is, they just want to know that you're going to caretake them. And in a round of golf, we all have, even in my best rounds and your best rounds, there's bad shots.
Yeah.
Scotty Scheffler, he gloops that second shot in the Masters. That shot was horrible by a professional standpoint, but he went on and shot, he would have shot, if he hadn't four-putted, I think he would have shot 69 in his last round. Shot 71 with a four-putt. How good is that?
Yeah, exactly. This might be a tenuous connection, but I'll go for it anyways. I gave a workshop in the fall. It was my first one live in many, many months. And so because it was live, I created a PowerPoint. And I'd been giving this particular workshop as a webinar. So I don't like PowerPoints anyways. And I just thought, yeah. But I used this PowerPoint and I felt chained to it. And I felt like this is where, I need to get to this now. I got to get to this now. Here's what it says on the clock. And it was just like, I felt like, in sort of speaker workshop terms, I bombed that night.
Yeah.
And then I did a webinar. It was about a couple of weeks later. And I had some notes, some bullet points, but I did not have a PowerPoint. Howard, I never looked at my notes once. Beautiful. I just started talking and it just flowed and it was fun. And, there's one part I went, I forgot to tell you an important part. We'll have to go back and tell that. And they laughed and they went on with it. So again, it made it come back to be creative and having some flow. And I think when we're trying to do things the right way and remember this idea or concept, I think that's just it puts kind of a shackle on things.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Getting back quickly, and we're going to wrap up, everyone, so don't panic. But getting back to these three very good players I played with yesterday, and Yeah, it's funny how, there's a lot of the old school golf culture in that group yesterday, and they're really good golfers. But it's that golf culture of I need to work on my swing, and if my swing is working, then I will have a good score. And I'm not saying they're always like this, because they're, especially Lars, who's a fine tournament player. So he knows how to grind it out. But I think a lot of amateur golfers, and I was just tying it back to the psychology of expectation management. And in my little, 6-client world, one of the things I tell all these guys is this. If you don't know what a good shot is, how will you know if you ever make a good shot? Like from the statistical 150 yards from the green, if you don't know that hitting the green with an 8 handicap from 150 yards is a good shot, you're going to be pissed thinking you were supposed to get that closer. And I think of all the things I've learned from Fawcett, that one idea of knowing what managing your expectations. One of the acronyms in Decade is expectations. Discipline and expectations are, to me, the secret sauce out there. I had a really fine round yesterday. I'll bore you with the details after we stop recording. But on the 17th hole, I misjudged the wind, and the pull hook showed up, so I'm long left over the green. And I've sort of short-sighted myself long, meaning it was a back pin, and we're playing a fun game of team games or whatever, and my partner was in there good. But I also was like, I'm not trying to get this close. I was in a bad position, and I pitched onto the green and 35 feet past the flag and went down and whatever. But I understood that was an okay shot in that moment. It gave me a 2-putt for bogey, and I got to move on. If I had tried to get it close from there, maybe some low percentage times out of 20, but I just took, these are all cliches, but I just sort of went, okay, I'm going to make good contact, and if it lands within 20 feet, I'm fine with it. Whereas an earlier version of myself would have been, feeling weird, or those guys are on the green, and I've got to get it up and down for par. I'm having a great day. But I didn't think any of that. The discipline of Decade just my decision was simple. Get good contact, land it on the green, take your medicine. That more than anything else, basically, I saved a double bogey there. And not making double bogey is the way to make, lower scores for us amateurs. All right.
That's why you're the Decade Sherpa.
I'm golf spiritual leader. Oh, there
you have that wisdom to share.
Tim O'Connor or ConnorGolf.ca. Sign up for Quiet Mind. There's still time. And, of course, you can always get Timmy to work with you privately. It's a very intimate experience and very gentle. Thanks to Jonathan Wong, Apparel, jwapparelinc.com. And, of course, thanks to our very, very good friends at TaylorMade. It's never been a better time to sign up and get fit. The carbon wood era is upon us. TaylorMadeGolf.ca. All right, O'Connor, until next week. Take care.
See you, man.
Oh, and thanks to Dave Hemstad, for sure.
Yeah.